Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. India and Pakistani forces exchange fire briefly at the line of control as tensions rise after the Pahalgam terror attack. Indian Army sources say Pakistan initiated the firing. Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi is in Kashmir as United Nations calls for maximum restraint. Reliance becomes the first Indian firm with a net worth in excess of 10 lakh crore rupees as it turns in a resilient fourth quarter performance across all key segments. Revenues jumped nearly 9%, driven by strong growth in its digital services and retail businesses, which offset a subdued performance in energy businesses. Net profit rises over 6%. Jio's average revenues per user jump over 13% to more than 206 rupees. Maruti Suzuki misses estimates in Q4, profits down over 4%. Revenue growth is below expectations. Margins contract by 180 basis points annually. Sensex and Nifty gain 1% this week despite a sell-off on Thursday and Friday. Nifty manages to hold above 24,000. Mid-cap index up 2% this week. China denies any trade negotiations with the US once again. This after President Trump claims officials from both nations have been meeting each other. China tells US to abolish the tariffs if it wants a resolution to the tussle. Apple is seeking to import most of the iPhones it sells in the United States from India by the end of 2026. Sources say the company is aiming to accelerate the shift beyond China to mitigate the tariffs. Indian electric vehicle makers face a challenge as China restricts the supply of rare earth magnets, which are critical for production. Beijing is now demanding end-user certificates signed by officials from India and China before authorizing imports. A day after Bharti Airtel sought conversion of spectrum dues to equity, government sources say such a conversion is not automatic. The Telecom department is open to consider the request, but it is subject to evaluations. President Draupadi Murmu will attend the state funeral of Pope Francis tomorrow, where leaders including US President Trump and heads of state from around the world will be in attendance. Also on the show, a box office failure when it released a cult classic now. Andaz Apna Apna re-releases on the big screen as multiplexes bet on old to hit box office gold. Well, India and Pakistan relations have hit a new rock bottom days after terrorists attacked tourists at Jammu and Kashmir's Pahalgam, killing 26 and leaving 17 injured. Now, Indian and Pakistani forces exchanged fire briefly at the line of control last night. Indian Army sources said that Pakistan violated the ceasefire near Naukam village in J&K. Indian Army Chief General Upendra Dwivedi was in J&K to review the security situation. He held meetings with LG Manoj Sinha and top army commanders. General Dwivedi has directed all officials in Jammu and Kashmir to remain on high alert. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar met the envoys from USA and Israel in Delhi. Both Washington and Tel Aviv have also said that they stand with India in its fight against terrorism. Visas of all Pakistani nationals have been cancelled. The Union Home Secretary directed Chief Secretaries of States to identify Pakistani nationals residing in their jurisdictions and ensure their expeditious return. India has formally notified Islamabad about suspending the Indus Waters Treaty. A letter from the Union Water Resources Ministry said that sustained cross-border terrorism by Pakistan targeting Jammu and Kashmir impedes India's rights under this treaty.
Government of India has taken some steps as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned. Let's be honest, we have never been in favor of the Indus Water Treaty. We have always believed that the Indus Water Treaty has been the most unfair document to the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Now, what the medium to long-term implications of this are, that's something we will have to wait to see.
Well, from that, shifting focus now to the stock market action. The Sensex and the Nifty gained 1% this week. Despite a sell-off on Thursday and Friday, Nifty managed to hold on to the 24,000 mark after a 200-point decline. Sensex lost nearly 600 points. The mid-cap saw sharper cuts today. but the index gained with gains of 2% for the week. Well, in earnings today, Reliance Industries has become the first Indian company with a net worth in excess of 10 lakh crore rupees. RIL turned in a resilient fourth quarter performance across all key segments. Revenues jumped nearly 9%, driven by strong growth in its digital services and retail businesses, which offset a subdued performance in energy businesses. Net profit rises over 6%. For FY25, consolidated revenues jumped over 7%. Rima and Mangalam are here to decode the numbers for us. Rima, let me start with you. Give us an overview on the numbers and Jio's performance in particular.
Well, it was steady and strong for Reliance Industries in Q4. The company's consolidated EBITDA at 43,800 crore came in line with expectations with a growth of 3.1% on a year-on-year basis. Now, this EBITDA growth was driven by the consumer business, which basically is retail and digital. Digital is your JPL business, there's Jio Platform, which also includes Jio. So our retail business EBITDA grew by 14.3%, while the digital business EBITDA was up 18.5%. But on the flip side, this was countered by softness in their energy business. So the oil to chemicals business EBITDA was down 10%. And this was driven by weaker transportation fuel cracks, and the oil and gas EBITDA also declined by 8.6% on the back of lower KG-D6 production. So consumer strong, energy subdued. But the big positive, which we'll talk more about it, was the retail performance coming in at 14.5%. And they've also seen strong traction in the quick hyperlocal delivery business. Now, Jio has clocked in a steady quarter. Now, the telecom business is still benefiting from the July tariff hikes. So Q4 is the third consecutive quarter of an ARPU increase. ARPU has come in at 206.2, in line with expectations. But what's also positive is that after two subdued quarters of a subscriber movement, in Q3, the subscriber addition was just about 3.3 million. In Q2, they actually lost subscribers. In Q4, they've bounced back strongly with the subscriber addition. So both ARPU and subscriber growth was healthy, and that contributed to EBITDA margins of 53.9% for Jio. So Jio's performance on expected lines was strong. The top line, just to get you the numbers, the company's consolidated revenue at 2.61 lakh crore, while the consolidated profit came in at 19,400 crore rupees. And as you pointed out, milestones continue to pour in for Reliance Industries. Remember, it was the first company to cross a turnover of 10 lakh crore last year. They also crossed 20 lakh crore in market capitalization last year. And this year, in 2025, in the first quarter of calendar year 2025, it's the first Indian company to have a net worth of over 10 lakh crore. But retail is clearly the shining spot where the outperformance has come in this time.
Totally. Reliance Retail is one that took your breath away this time around. Most on the street were expecting moderation. The company actually, displayed acceleration. Revenue growth of 15.6% is what the company has reported in this quarter in their retail vertical. On an absolute basis, the numbers came in at 88,637 crores. You look at the margins as well as the EBITDA. Most on the street were working with a number of 10 to 12% growth with an outside chance of 14-15%. That would be a big positive surprise. The company has actually reported a 14.4% growth in the retail business EBITDA, crossing that 6,700 crore mark for the fourth quarter this year itself. With this, for year FY25, Reliance Retail's revenue has crossed that 3,30,000 crore mark and the EBITDA close to 25,000 crores itself. They've added over 1,000 stores, so their footprint now stands at 19,340 stores. And Reliance's own consumer brands vertical has actually become the second largest, or in its second year itself, has become the fastest growing FMCG company in the country with a revenue of over 11,450 crores. Consumer brands expanding beyond their own stores itself, going into general trade, growing at 3.5 times. Digital and new commerce continue to do well for them. 18% of their sales are now derived from these channels, and their own brands have seen a business growth of over 30%. So whichever way you cut it, Reliance Retail was definitely the shining star in the fourth quarter for Reliance Retail. Back to you.
Well, staying with earnings, India's leading car maker, Maruti Suzuki, reported a weak set of numbers in the fourth quarter, missing the street's expectations across most parameters. Sudarshan Kumar joins us now with a snapshot of the earnings. Sudarshan.
So it's a mixed set of earnings from Maruti. As far as profit and revenue are concerned, those numbers have come slightly below estimates, but margin has come in at 10.5% against our expectation of 12%. And company has given reasons, and because of expenses have increased, and three parts of expenses, if I can talk. First one is material cost. It has risen both sequentially and year-on-year. It was up 6% sequentially, 1% year-on-year. Employee expenses were up 15% year-on-year and 2% sequentially, and other expenses have increased 14% year-on-year and 13% sequentially. So if you accumulate all these have impacted margin by 230 basis points. Now, material cost impact on margin was by 90 basis points, employee cost impacted by 30 basis points, and other expenses impact were of 110 basis points. So what all a company has included in other expenses? It has mentioned first, new plant-related expenses, second, higher sales promotion or ad expenses, and third, higher manufacturing overhead expenses. So these have come in other expenses, and that has impacted margin by 110 basis points. But what was the positive in the earnings was the realization. It has improved both sequentially and year-on-year because of the price hike that company has taken, not only in Q4, but even in Q1 FY26 also it had announced price hike. But just if we talk about Q4, they had taken price hike twice, and that had impacted positively to realization, which has improved 7% year-on-year and 3% sequentially. Now in the commentary, what exactly we'll be looking for? First, what company says on outlook, demand outlook, because recently they had attended press conference, they had attended one conference in which all the companies, including Hyundai, M&M and Maruti, were saying that in FY26 also PV demand growth is likely to be in low single digit. So we'll have to see if there is any update on that and what exactly company says on commodity outlook going forward.
Sudarshan, thanks a lot for that. Now, coming up, Apple is seeking to import most of the iPhones it sells in the United States from India by the end of 2026. And you can also catch all CNBC TV 18's news and updates on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, and Jio Hotstar. You are watching India Business Up. Now, China has once again denied having trade negotiations with the United States. This statement comes after US President Donald Trump indicated that officials from both nations have been meeting each other. The Chinese government has told US that if the Trump administration wants to have trade negotiations, they will have to remove the tariffs. Speaking to the media outside the White House, President Trump has said that he spoke to President Xi Jinping numerous times, but did not clarify on the details.
You said you spoke with President Xi. Have you spoken to him since the tariffs? When did you last speak with him?
I don't want to comment on that, but I've spoken to him many times.
Meanwhile, tech giant Apple is considering India as one of its manufacturing hubs for all iPhones for the US market. Sources tell us that Apple plans to make most iPhones for the US from India by the end of next year. Parikshit Luthra is joining us now with more details. Parikshit.
Apple is considering making India a hub to manufacture all Apple phones for the US market by next year. This is because of US-China trade tensions and the high tariffs on China imposed by the Trump administration. But Apple's decision will also depend on adequate capacity ramp-up in India and the trajectory of the US-China trade talks. The company is considering increasing production to 40 million phones in India in 2025. Production last year was around 26 million phones. Apple contract manufacturers in India are ramping up capacity in existing facilities. Foxconn's Bengaluru plant is likely to be operational within this month and will have a capacity to manufacture 20 million phones at peak capacity. So while there is an intent to make all Apple phones in India, a lot will depend on whether US and China can reach a deal. Apple did not reply to CNBC TV 18 queries.
Right, Parikshit, thanks a lot for that. Now, Indian electric vehicles maker face a challenge after China restricted the supply of rare earth magnets. These magnets are critical for production. Beijing is now demanding end-user certificates signed by officials from India and China before authorizing imports. The United States may relax curbs restricting the number of graphics processing units or GPUs that India can import from the country. Sources tell CNBC TV 18 that talks are underway between the two nations to ease the cap of 50,000 GPUs imposed during President Joe Biden's tenure. This could help India's AI mission, under which the government is looking to raise the GPU availability to over 33,000. A day after Bharti Airtel sought conversion of spectrum dues to equity, government sources tell CNBC TV18 that such a conversion is not automatic. The conversion will be subject to the Telecom Department's approval after it considers the telecom company's application. Congress MP and Lok Sabha Leader of Opposition Rahul Gandhi visited the victims of the Pahalgam attack at the Army Hospital in Srinagar today. He also met Jammu and Kashmir Chief Minister Omar Abdullah. Houses of two suspected terrorists involved in the Pahalgam attack was demolished in Jammu and Kashmir. The homes of Asif Sheikh at Pulwama district and Adil Thokar in Anantnag were razed to the ground, apparently using explosives, according to several media outlets in Srinagar. The police have not issued any statement on the demolitions. Muslims in Hyderabad and other parts of India wore black armbands on Friday prayers to protest the attack on tourists in Pahalgam. Lok Sabha MP Asauddin Owaisi had issued a call yesterday to all Muslims to wear black armbands as a mark of protest. Now, the closure of Pakistan's airspace for India's airlines will lead to higher costs and longer flying time, especially for international flights from Delhi and northern India. Madhya Mujawar is here to explain the flight path and the cost pinch for India's airlines.
Several flights have been impacted from India due to Pakistan closing its airspace for Indian airlines. Let us show you through maps how the routes have changed and how that affects the airlines on multiple fronts. First, let's take Air India's Delhi to New York route. These flights would earlier go over the Pakistan airspace through Lahore, Islamabad, Tajikistan and Kazakhstan. But now these flights will have to come south to fly over Mumbai and Ahmedabad and fly over Oman airspace via Iran and Azerbaijan. These flights won't be able to fly non-stop to US, so they will take a technical halt somewhere in Europe. We reported that Air India's flights today from Mumbai to New York halted in Copenhagen and Delhi to New York halted in Vienna. This adds nearly 4 hours more in the journey. Let's look at Delhi to London route. These flights would earlier fly over the Pakistan airspace, crossing Afghanistan and Turkmenistan to enter Europe. But now their route will also get longer as they will first fly over Ahmedabad and Mumbai and cross Oman, UAE, Kuwait to enter Europe. This adds about 2 hours more in the journey. Now, flights to Gulf will see only a slight deviation. For example, Lucknow to Dammam flight that would otherwise have a straight route flying over Pakistan will now have to fly over Muscat and Dubai. This could mean an extra time of 30 minutes to an hour. Let's now look at Indigo's flights from Delhi to Tbilisi in Georgia. Earlier, they would fly over Pakistan but will now spend extra time flying over Mumbai and Ahmedabad, probably take a technical halt in Ahmedabad and then proceed to Tbilisi via Iran. Flights to Central Asia will be impacted the most. As per Flight Radar 24, Indigo has cancelled its flight to Almaty in Kazakhstan, as it would earlier pass through Pakistan and an alternate route might not be feasible at the moment. So what all this essentially means is that Indian airlines may not be able to provide direct connectivity to the US. They will have to take a technical halt in Europe for ultra-long-haul flights. More flying means more fuel burn, delayed journey times and lower utilization of aircraft. It's inconvenient and costly, but airlines have done this in 2019 as well after the Balakot airstrike when Pakistan had closed its airspace to Indian airlines. As all the international flights from North India like Delhi, Lucknow, Amritsar will fly over Mumbai and Ahmedabad, it brings more workload for the Mumbai air traffic controllers. The Mumbai ATC will handle 120 more flights per day, requiring them to deploy more workforce to manage the traffic.
Well, the Pahalgam incident has not dampened India's love for travel. Tourists were back at Pahalgam just 3 days after terrorists attacked and targeted tourists, killing 26. My colleague Arunima gets us this report.
For the last 3 days, Pahalgam was like a ghost town. All hotels had emptied out. Even now, this is just one group which has arrived, and they are thrilled to be here. Hopefully, the locals here are hoping, and you see a lot of locals are actually making a reel of this group because they want to put out the message on social media that Pahalgam is once again seeing tourist footfall. It's important to them because their livelihood depends on the tourism industry, and no tourist was giving them a nightmare other than the horror of what they had witnessed on April 22nd.
तो पहले से तो डर लगा, मेरा रिलेटिव जो है वह भी डर लगाया है, जो पहल का आने के लिए बना किया है, लेकिन तो आज तो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन तो मुझको सपोर्ट किया है, जो परमिशन दिया है जाने के लिए, तो अभी आया है।
जब अटैक हुआ आपने पुलिस कंट्रोल रूम पे फोन किया?
ना अटैक तो हम तो बाद में जानते हैं ना, अटैक भी जो दिन जब से हुआ है अब तो डल लेक में है।
अच्छा।
डल लेक में वो दिन बोटिंग कर रहे हैं, डल लेक में निषद गार्डन है।
आप लोग अहमदाबाद से आए हैं, मैं देख रही हूँ काफी जोश है सबके अंदर। यहाँ पे किसी ने आपसे कहा आते वक्त, सिक्योरिटी ने रोका हाईवे पे, किसी ने कहा मत जाओ?
ना, किसी ने नहीं किया, उल्टा हमको जो लोकल थे उन्होंने ऐसा कहा कि आप जाओ पहलगाम। एक्चुअली हमारा प्लान था जाने का, लेकिन हम अवॉइड करने वाले थे, हम नहीं आने वाले थे। लेकिन हम एक दो शॉप पे जो शॉपिंग के लिए खड़े रहे तो उन्होंने बोला कि पहलगाम क्यों नहीं जा रहे हो, वहाँ पे जाओ, आप यहाँ पे आए हो, कुछ भी सिक्योरिटी का मसला नहीं है, आप जाओ, आप पूरे से एंजॉय कर पाओगे।
In international headlines, a senior Russian military officer has reportedly killed when a car bomb exploded as he walked past in a city near Moscow. Authorities have said that the improvised explosive device was packed with shrapnel and a gas cylinder inside the vehicle fueled the blast. The car was outside a residential unit. Israeli forces have killed more than 60 people in Gaza in the last 24 hours. The Palestinian Civil Defense Branch has said that 12 people from the same family in North Gaza were among those killed in the early morning airstrikes. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry has reported that nearly 2,000 people have been killed since Israel pulled out of its ceasefire agreement with Hamas on the 18th of March. President Draupadi Murmu has reached Rome to attend Pope Francis's state funeral at the Vatican tomorrow. She's accompanied by Minority Affairs Minister Kiran Rijiju, his deputy George Kurian, and Goa's Deputy Speaker Joshua Peter D'Souza are also a part of the delegation. US President Donald Trump and Ukraine's Vladimir Zelensky are among the prominent dignitaries who will attend the pontiff's funeral tomorrow. The government has filed an affidavit in the Supreme Court seeking the dismissal of the petitions challenging the validity of the Waqf Act. In the affidavit, the centre has said that it would oppose any stay on the implementation of the new law. The centre added that the act is a valid and lawful exercise of legislative power. The Bombay High Court has granted protection to stand-up comedian Kunal Kamra from arrest. However, the court directed that the probe can continue in the case over Kamra's traitor comment about Maharashtra's Deputy Chief Minister Eknath Shinde. The two-judge bench also said that if the police wanted to question Kamra, they would have to do it in Chennai. The Supreme Court pulled up Congress leader Rahul Gandhi over his comments on Veer Savarkar while staying the criminal defamation proceedings pending against Gandhi in Lucknow court. The two-member bench asked Gandhi to refrain from making such comments in the future or warned of suo motu action. The Delhi High Court granted bail to social activist Medha Patkar in a 24-year-old defamation case filed by VK Saxena, who is now the Delhi LG. She was released in the evening hours after her arrest. She had been taken into custody for failing to comply with last year's order, which had asked her to furnish a probation bond and pay 1 lakh rupees in fine. The next hearing in this matter is slated for the 20th of May. Now, Grandmaster. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates will continue right here on CNBC TV 18.